Good morning, everybody. Mark Westcott. Today's special guest, John Stringer. Welcome, John.
Good. Thank you, Mark, and welcome to your listeners as well.
Did I just wake you up? There was a delay there. You okay?
Yeah, we're good. We're good
trying to do
roll.
two things at once. I know. Anyway, welcome today. Now, the introduction for John, I had on a post I made yesterday. John's actually one of my two current business coaches from marketing and certainly from the Facebook marketing campaign and so on. And so John has an intimate knowledge of what we're doing currently in regard to marketing rural succession solutions. But today is all about John. John lives down in country New South Wales. You want to talk about where you are, John?
Yeah, sure. I'm in Sunshine Bay, which is 2 bays around from Bateman's Bay, which is 2 hours east of Canberra, as most people would know.
Well, I didn't, so I'm obviously not most people, but anyway.
Oh, okay. Right. So, yeah, 3.5 hours south of Sydney itself, but right on the coast.
That's
so it's a small coastal town.
Okay. And your background, tell me about your background, John. You've been very successful in regard to helping business entrepreneurs and so on. So let's talk about what you've done in the past.
Yeah, so I've done quite a few things. I had 10 years in the New Zealand police force, primarily as a detective and a criminal intelligence analyst, and doing a lot of stuff around that. And then I came to Australia as a client's project manager and built a specialist medical centre on the Gold Coast, opposite Bruce Linden BMW for a client. Okay. And then while I was working on that, I started to talk to 1 or 2 of the contractors who were struggling with their businesses. And given my corporate background that I had prior to going into the police force, I've just applied some of the principles from that and the inquisitive mind that I developed being a police officer, and molded the two together to help businesses basically get out of the pile of doo-doo that they might be in and become better and more efficient.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you and I chat, and if you're free to be yourself with me, it frustrates the hell that getting the financial information and numbers. You're very much a numbers man, aren't you? And you spend a lot of time really focusing on getting the numbers right and helping people work starting from that basis. Is that correct?
It is. I mean, for me, anything that we do in business, it actually produces a number somewhere. A lot of people build a lot of data, record a lot of transactions, and unless you're looking at that, you really can't get a handle on what's going on inside the business. So my specialty is numbers and what they mean and the patterns and everything else. But when I encounter someone that doesn't like the numbers, then I have to find another way around it, because at the end of the day, the numbers are actually, they tell a story and they're important, and they're a vital part of whatever you're doing in business. They're going to tell you whether you're doing something well, not doing something so well, you're wasting time on something, you're not putting enough time into something else that is highly productive and highly valuable. But yeah, the numbers for me just simply tell a story, and it's the story I'd like to find, and then that gives me, as you know, it gives me a million questions to ask.
No, that's right. Well, you and Zach are actually a really great team because you both have different skill sets. So do you want to talk about and the business that you've got? Do you want to talk about what your ideal client looks like and the sort of people you're dealing with and you're wanting to deal with at the moment?
So in terms of what Zach and I are doing, is that we're wanting to help established business owners, coaches, agencies, consultants, those type of people, to actually build out something that matters to them, that has a positive impact on the world. And it's taking them and walking them through all of the processes that are necessary to develop a message that fits the market, attracts the market, and ultimately gets the market to engage with you. In simple terms, that's what we do, but there are a lot of moving parts to that. And that's what we've found, is that between us, we can cover all of the moving parts that are necessary to have at least a 3/4 decent chance of engaging with your market.
Yep. I'm going to come back to that, if I might, in a minute, John, and certainly in regard to what we're doing with the book that I'm launching at the end of this month or the start of December, and the work we're doing on that. And it's been a very interesting process for both of us, I think, going through that. So I'll park that one for a second, but I wanted to just ask you, because Tea and Scones was founded back when COVID started as a way to start off the week for people in a positive and enthusiastic way, focus on gratitude, mindfulness, positivity, and so on. So and a lot of the early people that I spoke with, that's really what we focused on. What habits, routines, and so on do they have for their week? How do they start their week? How do you start your day? What is it that you do to, I guess, be the most productive, positive person you possibly can be? So looking at the areas of gratitude, mindfulness, and so on, John, what are the habits that you bring every week that have helped you as you've gone through life?
Pretty much, my partner and I sit down at the end of each day, or if it's not each day, certainly every 2 or 3 days, and just remind ourselves of how fortunate we are, what we have, and what so many people don't have. And even though we might sometimes want to have a bit of a grumble, we just have to remind ourselves what we really do have and be grateful for that. I mean, we have pretty good health. All of our children have good health. Our grandchildren have great health, and you really can't ask for much more in the world.
Absolutely. You've got a beautiful house there in the background too, John.
That's smoke and mirrors, Mark. Just using the green screen technology to get away from what you called an old green rag.
No, that's right. But no, you have got a beautiful new house down there where you live, and so. But yes. No, it's interesting talking about what you do for gratitude every every day or every few days, and that is to sit down and do what we refer to as a positive focus. In other words, thinking about what you have achieved, focusing on your progress, not perfection. Great line I learned from Dan Sullivan was, focus on your progress, not your perfection, and otherwise you get stuck in the gap, and you're always feeling like you're not enough, or you haven't achieved enough, or all the bad words that are sort of associated with underachievement or failure. And I just think it's a great way to start each day in a couple of ways. And if I can just recount this, what I do at the start of each day is when I'm having a walk or whatever, I focus on 5 areas of gratitude, and that's around family, my health, where I live, my past experiences, and experiences that are to come. So they're the 5 areas that I focus on from a gratitude point of view. But also start the day by focusing on the big rocks. So what are the 3 biggest things I need to achieve today to make progress? And then at the end of the day, just do a recount and focus on the positive stuff that's happened. And even if you haven't finished something, as you're saying, John, focusing on the progress and what we do have rather than what we don't have. And it's such a simple thing to remember. So it's great that that's what you're incorporating in your process.
Yeah, so pretty much to that. I also look at the end of the day and see where I sit in relation to what I wanted to have achieved for the day. And if I haven't, I look at why, and then I make sure that that's the first thing I address the following day, is the pieces I never got finished or I wasn't happy with. You get those done and out of the way so that then I have nothing really lagging behind and causing me any sort of grief.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you this question because there's a lot to do with what you do, John. What is a funnel?
The best illustration I can give you is think of the funnel that you use to put petrol or gasoline into the motor, right? It's simply a big wide open neck, and it just controls the flow of liquid into the tank on the motor. So in marketing terms, you have the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, and you're looking to attract the right people to tip in at the top so that you can filter them through and bring them through in a controlled fashion out the bottom to the point where they're working with you. That's probably about the most simplistic illustration I can give. Of course, to get the fuel to put it into the funnel, so that's all the work that Zach and I do, is to make sure we've got all the right pieces so that you're tipping the right contacts, the right people into your funnel to sift them through and work out which ones you want to work with, which are ideal, and which ones you want to engage with.
Well, that's right. And you've got to attract the top of the funnel. You've got to attract people's attention and connect with them in a way that they know, like, and trust you, and that what you're providing for them is something that's going to be valuable for them. Correct?
Absolutely. I mean, unless you're offering value, then really there's no sense being out there, because people can see where people are not offering value. They're simply trying to grab money. People's radar's finely tuned because there are so many people doing it. They know the imposters from the truly valuable people.
Sure. Why Facebook? Why, you've tended to do a lot of work with Facebook. I'm not sure if you use Google Ads and so on much, John, but have you found Facebook's probably the simplest and easiest way to target a specific audience? So for example, in my business, how my business is rural succession solutions. So sending Facebook ads to people who are in the middle of Queen Street or Pitt Street or in Sydney or whatever is pointless, because they're not going to read something about rural succession solutions. If I'm wearing R.M. Williams and boots and a belt, they don't care. So Facebook, is that an easy way for people to target who they want to get their message to?
It's a great starting point to validate that you are connecting with the audience that is consuming your content and is engaging with it in some way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean to say that there aren't cases where you should maybe use a Google pay-per-click campaign or a LinkedIn campaign, but it depends what your client's ecosystem is. Where are they going? What are they consuming? When are they consuming it? How are they consuming it? And, there's an awful lot of people do have a Facebook account, even if they're sitting on the couch after dinner, watching TV and casually flicking through things in between the commercials.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, how important are words in what you do?
Sorry, I just got interrupted by Alexa. So could you ask that again?
What's the importance of words? I've always said you're very cunning when it comes to putting words together. So, how important is the words you use when you're marketing to a specific audience? Because this is one of your skills, I know.
Quite by accident. No, words are extremely important. I mean, there's an art in writing copy, and I don't profess to be a copywriter at all, but I have learned over the years of consuming a lot of content and listening to what people are saying, that you have to write words that you have to understand the language of your market, you have to understand the language of your client, and then you need to put together a compelling story that they will engage with. And that's what I think one of the things that we found, certainly working with you, is that if we ask enough questions, we understand how you operate, how you think, how you engage with people, and then being able to pull that out, it gives us the core language that we need to use. And then it's just a case of writing something that sounds warm and connecting.
That's right. Words for a rural audience are different to inner city Melbourne trendies. We'd use different words.
And that's the beauty that we've found, is that when you engage directly with a client and you understand the world that they work in, which is what I really like to do. I don't want to work in my world, I want to work in your world and understand what goes on, what sort of responses you get, what sort of conversations you have, what sort of responses you get to those conversations. It tells us a lot about the words and the language that's being used. And in that, we invariably find what will connect.
Yep. Yeah, I think one of the most successful videos that I've done recently, John, was the polypipe one. Which people in the cities would have no idea what polypipe is, right? No. So I did the YouTube video regarding driving around the paddock, and there was a whole muddy patch there because the polypipe had broken on my brother's on the family property, and just use the analogy between if you don't pay attention to things, how they can get out of shape and broken, and comparing that to an estate plan and so on. So it's interesting. That's what we try and you try and encourage me to do the most is to find things that really resonate with your audience and and just have conversations and find ways to connect to people so that they see the analogy between, maybe something else that's happened and what can go wrong in their estate and their succession plan.
Yeah, a big part of that, Mark, is encouraging you to be the authentic you, not something else that you're not. And I remember that story about the damp patch on the ground, but that was part of the story because that was actually water that was feeding the paddock, that fed the cows, that gave the farmer the income. And again, we just looked at that and understood how that might relate to what we were trying to do, and found the connection to use for the words and the stuff that you're trying to do with your rural clients.
That's right. It was a 1-minute video, but I mean, basically at the end, it was, all the grief and panic everyone has to make sure the cows get water. But how much time have you spent making sure that your family's going to be okay if something happens to you? So it was, it was just a really good. It was just a genuine sort of conversations about, my family farm, my eldest brother, and how you connect that back, and people go, oh yeah, that makes sense. We're spending all this time and effort making sure our cows don't die, but we're not thinking enough about what happens, if they pass away, and what grief is that going to cause their family. So it was a nice analogy that way. For the average person, John, that's because we all have Facebook accounts. Well, most do. If you're watching this, you obviously do. How does the average person understand the integrity and of people that are trying to communicate with them on Facebook versus people who are just cunning, use all the right words, the right images, and all that sort of stuff? How do you dig through all? Because we're bombarded with it every day. What's the best way to cut through that and find out who the people are that are genuine and actually have your best interests at heart as part of their process?
I think for me, the big difference is that authentic content tells a story that connects. And I think the inauthentic people with a lot of pile of rubbish, you can tell the way that it's written and how you're responding to what's written as being something that just doesn't resonate, and clearly someone just looking to wipe some money from you as quick as they can. Whereas a genuine story has just got its own feeling and connection, and I think they're night and day different.
John, you've dealt with a lot of people, and you and Zach are working with a number of people as well. What's an experience that comes to mind for you? What's one of your great success stories where you've been able to sit back, at the end of what you guys have done as part of your work, and I don't know, maybe you can't. I'm not asking you to give names and all that sort of stuff, but in general terms, what are the things where you've done some work and it's just created such great outcomes for both, the clients of the people and the people you've been working with? What are you most proud of?
There are two things I can think of in the work that we're doing at the moment, and that is working with a client who thought that they had to be a lot of things in the marketing space. They had to understand this, they had to understand Facebook, they had to understand marketing, they had to understand copy, they had all these things they felt they needed to understand, and they weren't being who they truly are, because they were trying to be someone that they weren't. And the minute I said to this person, look, all we want you to do is be the authentic you. Let us worry about the copy. Let us worry about connecting the pieces. Let us worry about putting it together. All we want is you to be truly, authentically you. And it was like a huge weight came off that person's shoulders. And almost immediately they settled and found a connection with what they were trying to do that they hadn't seen for some years.
Yep.
That was one case. Another case of a person who is in a very technically orientated business, has trouble disconnecting from the technical to the personal and finding a way to tell their story in a way that connects with his audience. And again, it was just simply listening to them recount a story one day and saying, what about this question or that question? So encouraging them to ask at least one more question, not stopping where they were going to discover a lot more. And since they've done that, they've found a wealth of information that's going to help them connect with their audience, something they'd never, ever been part of ever in their working life. It's just someone saying, you're stopping short. You need to ask one more question.
That's fantastic, John. And it actually dovetails into something I'm doing, and we didn't set each other up for this, but some years ago, I wrote a book with someone else called Power of Great Questions. And due to various reasons, I've sort of just let that go and haven't gone back to it for a few years. Questions and start a series such as this on a weekly basis, interviewing people and asking about the questions that they ask, which matter. And because I think a lot of times we're so busy trying to tell people things, we forget to ask the right questions, and people respond better to a question to which they can answer and they can come up with the answer for themselves than having someone sitting there telling them what they should do and what they should think. So, I absolutely agree with what you're saying in regard to asking questions and making sure they're good questions. In other words, being thoughtful about questions which actually get to the crux and make people think, make people come up with an outcome. And I'm so busy thinking about that. The first example you used, you finished off, and what was that? That example was yes, last week's guest speaker was Shannon Waller, and Shannon was talking about Dan Sullivan's new book called Who Not How. And he just reminded me, and everything you were saying about the first person you were referring to, thinking they should be doing everything and they should understand everything. I think one of the great lessons in life is understanding who should do things, not how should it be achieved. And that's why you and Zach are such great resources, John, for me, is because both of you are very good at doing things that I'm not good at. And that's why I think, between the three of us, we're coming up with good stuff. It's understanding who should do things.
And that reminds me of a saying I once heard, that really smart people surround themselves with people smarter than themselves in the things that they can't do or don't do well. Absolutely. And then that way you build a collective. And then to the question point, one of my great educations was as a police officer, and I learned how to ask one question many times over, and that was the question, well, why is that, or what do you mean, where does that take us? And that, keep asking that, you actually get to the bottom of it, then you actually have something you can work with. You actually have the raw truth, and now you can actually do something with that.
Very good. Hey, actually, I didn't realize you'd never mentioned before that you set up that medical centre opposite Bruce Linton's in Southport. So I didn't know you'd been so close to us up here, John.
Well, I lived on the Gold Coast. I lived on the Gold Coast for a while. When I came to Australia, I came across as a client's project manager and had a ophthalmologist that wanted to build a bit of a state-of-the-art ophthalmology centre or centred place where he could have his practice, he could have an optical shop, he could have what he thought would be procedure rooms on the ground floor, and let the top floor to medically based businesses. Well, it ended up, instead of procedure rooms, he had the space to develop fully fledged theatres. And I said to him early on, you're going to need these quicker than you think, because he was operating, you'll know Pindara Hospital, he was operating at Pindara. And so we took early in the piece, we put all the infrastructure in place so that if he ever decided he needed a theatre, it wasn't going to take a massive rebuild. It was a case of poking some holes in the walls and connecting things. And believe me, within 9 months, he had a request from someone that wanted to lease theatre space. 2 weeks later, boom, we shut it down. It was fully running again and certified. So, yeah, it's like many things. It's about also looking forward in business. Where do you want to be? How do you want to get there? And then what you think might happen, and allowing for that to be built into what you're doing, so that as you grow, you don't have to stop and re-engineer the background either.
Yep. So, John, I'd like to finish off with a question for you, and that's 3 years from now, if we're looking back to today. And let's just talk professionally in regard to your situation. What would have to have happened for you in your business for you to be happy with the progress that you've made over that period of time?
3 years' time, we've had a really, really positive influence on maybe 100 businesses.
Yep.
That they've gone on and created something of value that they wanted to create, that makes the people they connect with a much better place to be.
Yep. Very good.
Yeah, nothing like seeing someone achieve what they dream of achieving, and maybe a bit more.
Yep. So let's just quickly talk about Zach and your business called Game On. Is that right?
Yeah, Game On Marketing is Zach's marketing business, and then we've combined forces to bring our collective talents to that space to basically do what we're doing and we've talked about this morning.
Oh, very good. John, it's been a real pleasure having a chat with you this morning. Thanks for your time. Enjoyed chatting with you, and obviously next time we're chatting, you'll be quizzing me on the words we use in certain in my book and how to promote the book.
And that will arrive sooner than you think.
I'm sure it will. Okay, thanks, John. Great chatting with you today.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Thanks for your time.
Talk soon. See you.
See you, mate.